The woman standing at the edge of Moab, Utah in the summer of 1878 had walked 300 miles with a broken jaw that had healed all wrong. And when she finally collapsed against the trading post wall, she knew she looked like death itself. Willow Zimmerman had been beautiful once, or so her mother had told her before the fever took her. That was before the stagecoach accident 2 months past, before her face had smashed against the interior wall with such force that her teeth had shattered like glass, before the traveling dentist in Santa Fe had pulled what remained with pliers that smelled of rust and whiskey. The man had been drunk, his hands unsteady, and he had done more damage than good. Her jaw had swollen to twice its size, infected and oozing, and by the time the infection cleared, her face had healed crooked. Every tooth in her head was gone now, her gums pale and scarred, her left cheek slightly collapsed where the bone had not set right. She had been on her way to marry a rancher in Colorado, a man she had never met but who had sent for her through a matrimonial service. Her trunk with all her possessions had been lost in the accident. The other passengers had died. She had survived, but sometimes in the dark nights that followed, she wondered if survival was truly a blessing. The people of Santa Fe had looked at her with pity and revulsion. She had tried to find work, but no one wanted a woman who looked like a Halloween specter when she opened her mouth. She could barely eat, could not chew anything solid, and speaking caused her pain and shame in equal measure. The rancher in Colorado had written one letter after receiving news of her condition. He no longer required her services, so she had walked west, then north, following wagon trails and the kindness of strangers who gave her rides for a few miles at a time. She ate what she could beg or buy with the few coins she had sewn into her dress hem, soft bread soaked in milk, thin soups, mashed beans. Everything hurt. Everything reminded her of what she had lost. Moab was a small settlement along the Colorado River, surrounded by red rock formations that seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. It was not much more than a collection of wooden buildings and tents, a place where miners and cattlemen came for supplies before heading back into the wilderness. Willow had no plan beyond arriving somewhere, anywhere, and hoping that someone might have mercy on her. She had been sitting against the trading post wall for perhaps an hour when the shadow fell across her. She looked up, squinting against the sun, and saw a man who seemed carved from the same red rock that surrounded the town. Lucas Zane was the biggest man she had ever seen. He stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out the sun and arms thick with muscle that strained against his worn cotton shirt. His hair was dark brown and hung past his shoulders, tied back with a leather cord, and his beard was full and neatly trimmed. His face was weathered from years in the mountains, lines around his eyes that spoke of squinting into wind and snow and blazing sun. His hands, when he crouched down in front of her, were enormous and calloused, the hands of a man who worked with them every day. "Madam," he said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to come from somewhere in his chest, "you look like you could use some water." Willow tried to speak, but her mouth would not cooperate. The words came out garbled, unclear. She saw his eyes flicker to her mouth, saw him notice, but his expression did not change. He did not recoil or look away. He simply reached for the canteen at his hip and held it out to her. "Take your time," he said. Her hands shook as she took the canteen. The water was cool and clean, tasting of minerals and snow melt. She drank carefully, aware that he was watching, aware of how she must look with water dribbling down her chin because she could not close her lips properly over her ruined gums. "Thank you," she managed, the words thick and strange. "When did you last eat?" Lucas asked. She could not remember. "Yesterday, the day before." Everything had become a blur of heat and dust and pain. "I have money," she said, though it came out more like "I-ha muffy," and she felt her face flush with humiliation. She fumbled in her dress pocket for the few coins that remained. Lucas shook his head. "Keep your money. Come on, let us get you something to eat." He stood and offered his hand. After a moment, Willow took it, and he pulled her to her feet with such ease that she might have weighed nothing at all. Her legs trembled beneath her, weak from walking and hunger, and his hand on her elbow steadied her. The trading post had a small restaurant attached, 3 tables in a back room where the proprietor's wife served simple meals. Lucas guided her to a chair and then spoke in low tones to the woman behind the counter. Willow kept her head down, not wanting to see the looks that would surely come when people noticed her mouth. But Lucas returned with a bowl of something that smelled like heaven, and when he set it before her, she saw it was oatmeal, cooked until it was smooth and soft, with honey stirred through it and a pat of butter melting in the center. "Thought this might be easier," he said, sitting across from her with his own plate of fried ham and biscuits. Willow stared at the bowl, at the care someone had taken to make it just right, and felt tears prick at her eyes. She had not cried since Santa Fe, had been too tired and too numb, but this simple kindness broke something open inside her. "Thank you," she whispered, and this time he seemed to understand. She ate slowly, carefully, aware of him across the table eating his own meal and not staring at her. The oatmeal was perfect, soft enough that she did not need to chew, sweet and rich and filling. She ate every bite, scraping the bowl clean, and when she finally set down the spoon, she felt more human than she had in weeks. "You have somewhere to stay?" Lucas asked. Willow shook her head. She had been planning to ask at the trading post if there was a church or a boarding house, somewhere that might take her in for a night or two while she figured out what to do next. Lucas was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her face. She forced herself not to look away, even though every instinct told her to hide, to cover her mouth, to disappear. "I have a cabin up in the La Salle Mountains," he finally said, "about 10 miles from here. I come down every few weeks for supplies. I am heading back tomorrow morning. You are welcome to come with me. Stay until you figure out where you are going next. I have a spare room. You would be safe." Willow blinked. "Why would you do that?" The words came out unclear again, but he seemed to understand. He leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Because you need help, and I can provide it," he said simply. "And because you look like someone who has been through hell and could use a bit of peace." "You do not know me," she said. "No," he agreed, "but I know what it is like to need help and not find it. And I know what the mountains can do for a person who needs healing." Willow wanted to ask what he meant by that, but she was suddenly exhausted, the meal sitting heavy and warm in her stomach, her body finally relaxing now that she was out of the sun and had food and water. She must have swayed in her chair because Lucas stood quickly and came around the table. "There is a boarding house across the street," he said. "Let me get you a room for the night. We can talk more in the morning, and you can decide then if you want to come with me or stay here in town." She should have said no. She should have been cautious, wary of a strange man offering her shelter in an isolated cabin in the mountains. But something in his eyes, in the gentle way he had spoken to her, made her trust him in a way that defied logic. "All right," she said. The boarding house was run by a widow named Mrs. Patterson, a stern-faced woman with kind eyes who took one look at Willow and ushered her upstairs to a small, clean room without asking questions. Lucas paid for 3 nights in advance, despite Willow's weak protests, and told Mrs. Patterson that he would come by in the morning after breakfast. "Rest," he told Willow at the door to her room. "You are safe here." After he left, Willow sat on the edge of the narrow bed and tried to process what had just happened. A stranger had appeared out of nowhere and offered her kindness without expecting anything in return. It seemed too good to be true, and yet she could not shake the feeling that Lucas Zane meant exactly what he said. She lay down on the bed, still fully clothed, and fell asleep as the sun was setting, her dreams full of red rocks and cool water and the image of broad shoulders blocking out the sun. Morning came too quickly. Willow woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the sounds of the town stirring to life outside her window. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened, and then reality came crashing back. She sat up slowly, her body aching from weeks of hard travel, and went to the wash basin in the corner of the room. The mirror above it was small and spotted with age, but it showed her clearly enough. Her face was gaunt, her cheeks hollow, her skin burned brown by the sun. Her hair, once a rich chestnut, was dull and tangled, and her mouth, which she had been avoiding looking at for weeks now, was a ruin. Without teeth, her lips seemed to collapse inward, making her look decades older than her 22 years. The left side of her jaw was slightly crooked, giving her face an asymmetrical appearance that made her want to weep. She turned away from the mirror and did her best to wash and tidy herself. Mrs. Patterson had left a clean dress on the chair, a simple blue calico that was worn but mended with care. It was too big, but Willow belted it tightly and rolled up the sleeves. Her own dress was filthy and torn, barely held together. This borrowed one made her feel slightly more human. Downstairs, Mrs. Patterson had breakfast waiting. It was oatmeal again, this time with stewed apples on top, and Willow wondered if Lucas had spoken to the woman about what she could eat. The thought made her throat tight. The mountain man said he would be by at 8, Mrs. Patterson said, pouring coffee into a thick ceramic mug. That gives you about half an hour. Have you decided what you are going to do? Willow swallowed a mouthful of oatmeal. I think I am going to go with him. Mrs. Patterson nodded, unsurprised. Lucas is a good man. Been coming through Moab for 5 years now, ever since he built his cabin up in the La Salles. Keeps to himself mostly, but he has never been anything but honest and decent. You will be safe with him. What does he do up there? Willow asked. Traps, mostly. Beaver, fox, whatever he can find. Trades the pelts here in town. Also does some hunting, brings down elk and deer, cures the meat and sells it. He is good with his hands, too. Does repairs on cabins and barns when people need it. He is a hard worker. Willow filed this information away, trying to build a picture of the man who had offered her shelter. A trapper. A hunter. A man who lived alone in the mountains. It should have frightened her, but instead she felt a strange sense of calm. Lucas arrived exactly at 8, riding a large bay horse and leading a smaller roan mare. He was dressed for travel, with a wide-brimmed hat and a canvas coat, despite the summer heat. When he saw Willow standing on the boarding house porch, something shifted in his expression, a softness that made her heart skip. Morning, he said, dismounting with fluid grace. Did you sleep well? Yes, Willow said. Thank you for the room. He nodded. Are you coming with me, or would you prefer to stay in town? It was a genuine question, no pressure behind it, and Willow appreciated that. She took a breath and squared her shoulders. I would like to come with you if the offer still stands. It does, Lucas said. He gestured to the roan mare. This is Clover. She is gentle and sure-footed. Have you ridden before? A little, Willow admitted. Not much. That is all right. We will take it slow. He turned to his own horse and pulled a bundle from his saddlebag. I picked up some things from the trading post this morning. Thought you might need them. He handed her the bundle, and when she unfolded it, she found a split riding skirt, a fresh shirt, a warm wool jacket, and a pair of sturdy boots that looked about her size. There was also a hairbrush, a bar of lavender soap, and a new canteen. "I cannot pay you back," Willow said, her voice breaking. "Not right away." "I am not asking you to," Lucas said. He met her eyes, his gaze steady and kind. "Consider it a gift, or do not. Whatever makes you comfortable. But you need these things for the journey, and I do not want you to be cold or uncomfortable." Willow clutched the bundle to her chest, overwhelmed. No one had shown her this kind of thoughtfulness since before her parents died, since before she had been alone in the world. "Thank you," she managed. "You are welcome," Lucas said. "Now let us get you changed and ready to ride. We have a good day's journey ahead of us." Mrs. Patterson let Willow change in her room, and the new clothes fit well enough. The split skirt made riding easier, and the boots were comfortable despite being new. When she came back downstairs, Lucas was waiting with both horses ready. He helped her mount Clover, his hands firm and steady on her waist, and then swung up onto his own horse with easy strength. They left Moab heading northeast, following a trail that wound through sagebrush and juniper trees toward the distant mountains. The La Salles rose blue and imposing on the horizon, their peaks still holding snow even in late summer. The morning was already hot, the sun beating down on the red earth, but Lucas kept them moving at a steady pace, stopping frequently to let the horses rest and to offer Willow water. He did not push her to talk, and she was grateful for that. Her jaw ached from eating breakfast, and speaking was still difficult and embarrassing. Instead, she watched the landscape change around them, the desert giving way to scrub oak and pine as they climbed higher into the foothills. Around midday, Lucas stopped near a small creek and dismounted. He helped Willow down and then began unpacking supplies from his saddlebags. "We will rest here for a bit," he said. "Have some lunch." Willow sat on a flat rock near the water and watched as he built a small fire and set a pot to boil. From his bags, he pulled out dried meat, potatoes, and carrots and began chopping everything into small pieces. He worked with practiced efficiency, his large hands surprisingly deft with the knife, and soon the smell of cooking food filled the air. "Stew," he explained. "Soft enough to eat without teeth, and it will stay with you through the afternoon." Willow felt her face heat with embarrassment and shame, but Lucas did not seem to notice or care. He just kept cooking, tending the fire and stirring the pot, and when the stew was done, he ladled out a bowl for her and handed it over with a spoon. It was the best thing she had eaten in months. The meat was tender, nearly falling apart, and the vegetables were cooked until they were soft and flavorful. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, and when she looked up, she found Lucas watching her with a small smile. "Good?" he asked. "Very good," she said, and the words came out clear enough that he understood immediately. They rested by the creek for an hour, letting the horses graze and drink their fill. Lucas told her a bit about the mountains, about the trails and the wildlife, about the cabin he had built with his own hands 5 years ago. He had come to Utah from Montana, he said, looking for a place to be alone after the war. He had fought for the Union, seen things that still haunted him, and the mountains had offered him a kind of peace he could not find anywhere else. "It can be lonely," he admitted, "but it is quiet, and that counts for a lot. Why did you offer to help me?" Willow asked, the question that had been nagging at her since yesterday finally pushing its way out. Lucas considered this, his dark eyes thoughtful. "Because you looked like you needed it, and because I have been where you are, desperate and alone and not sure what comes next. Someone helped me once, and I figure I should pass that along when I can." "Who helped you?" Willow asked. "An old trapper named Ben Calloway. I met him my first winter in the mountains. I had no idea what I was doing, and I would have died if he had not taken me in and taught me how to survive. He passed on 3 years ago, but I think of him often. "I am sorry," Willow said. "Me too," Lucas said. "He was a good man." They continued riding into the afternoon, the trail growing steeper and narrower as they climbed. The air grew cooler, the pines thicker, and Willow began to see wildflowers blooming in the meadows they passed. Lucas pointed out deer tracks and showed her where bears had marked trees with their claws. He moved through the wilderness with the confidence of someone who belonged there, and Willow found herself trusting him more with each passing hour. By evening, they reached the cabin. It sat in a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, with a view of the valley below and the mountains rising behind it. The cabin was larger than Willow had expected, built from solid logs with a stone chimney and a covered porch. There was a barn for the horses, a chicken coop, and a neat vegetable garden fenced off to keep out deer. "Home," Lucas said simply, dismounting and offering his hand to help her down. Willow slid from the saddle, her legs stiff and sore from the long ride, and looked around. It was beautiful here, peaceful in a way that made her chest ache. She could hear birds singing in the trees and the sound of water running somewhere nearby. "Come on," Lucas said. "Let me show you inside." The cabin was warm and surprisingly comfortable. There was a main room with a stone fireplace, a sturdy table and chairs, and shelves lined with books and supplies. A doorway led to a bedroom on one side, and Lucas gestured to another door on the opposite side. "That is the spare room," he said. "It is not much, but it has a bed and a window. You can make it your own." Willow stepped into the room and found it simple but clean. There was a narrow bed with a thick quilt, a small dresser, and a window that looked out onto the forest. It was more than she had hoped for, more than she deserved. "It is perfect," she said. Lucas smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face into something almost boyish. "Good. Now let me get the horses settled, and then I will make us some dinner." He left her to unpack her few belongings, and Willow sat on the edge of the bed, trying to understand how her life had changed so dramatically in less than 24 hours. Yesterday, she had been starving and hopeless, certain that her life was over. Today, she was in a cabin in the mountains with a man who seemed determined to care for her, without asking for anything in return. She heard Lucas moving around outside, the sounds of him tending to the horses and chickens, and then the cabin door opened and closed, and she heard him in the main room. The smell of cooking food drifted through the door, and her stomach rumbled despite the lunch they had shared. When she ventured out, she found Lucas at the stove, stirring something in a large pot. He had changed into a clean shirt and tied his hair back, and Willow realized for the first time just how handsome he was beneath the weathered exterior. He had strong features, a straight nose and a firm jaw, and his eyes were a warm brown that seemed to see right through her. "I hope you like beans and cornbread," he said. "I am not much of a cook, but I can manage the basics." "I am sure it will be wonderful," Willow said, and it was. The beans were soft and seasoned with bacon, and the cornbread was moist and crumbly. Lucas had even made a pot of chicory coffee, and they sat at the table together as the sun set outside the windows, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Tell me about yourself," Lucas said as they ate. "Where are you from? What brought you to Utah?" Willow hesitated, not sure where to start. But there was something about Lucas, about the way he listened without judgment, that made her want to open up. "I am from Illinois originally," she began. "My parents had a farm, but they both died of influenza 3 years ago. I tried to keep the farm going, but I could not manage it alone. I sold it and moved to St. Louis, worked as a seamstress for a while. Then I saw an advertisement for mail-order brides in Colorado. A rancher was looking for a wife. I thought it might be a fresh start." "What happened?" Lucas asked gently. The stagecoach I was on wrecked outside Santa Fe, Willow said, her hand unconsciously going to her jaw. I hit my face hard, broke my jaw, shattered my teeth. There was a dentist in town who pulled what was left, but he did a poor job of it and everything got infected. By the time I healed, I looked like this. She gestured to her mouth, unable to meet his eyes. The rancher wrote to me and said he did not want me anymore, she continued. I do not blame him. Who wants a wife who cannot even chew her food? A fool, Lucas said bluntly. Any man who would reject you over something you could not control is a fool. Willow looked up, startled. Lucas was staring at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. You are not defined by your teeth, Willow, he said. You are defined by your courage. You walked hundreds of miles alone. You survived when others did not. You kept going when most people would have given up. That takes strength. I do not feel strong, Willow whispered. Strength is not always about feeling strong, Lucas said. Sometimes it is just about putting one foot in front of the other, even when you want to lie down and quit. You have been doing that for weeks now. That is strength. Willow felt tears slip down her cheeks and she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. But Lucas reached across the table and took her hand, his touch warm and solid. You are safe here, he said. I promise you that. Stay as long as you need to. Heal. Figure out what comes next. There is no rush. Why are you being so kind to me? Willow asked, her voice breaking. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Because I know what it is like to feel broken, he said finally. After the war, I felt like I would never be whole again. Coming here, building this cabin, living in the mountains, it helped me piece myself back together. Maybe it can do the same for you. That night, Willow lay in her narrow bed and listened to the sounds of the forest outside her window. Owls hooted in the distance, and the wind rustled through the pines, and somewhere far away, a coyote howled. It was so different from the silence of the boarding houses and towns she had stayed in, so different from the lonely roads she had walked. It was wild and alive, and she felt something in her chest loosen, some tight knot of fear and shame beginning to unravel. In the morning, she woke to the smell of cooking and found Lucas in the kitchen making oatmeal with berries he had picked from the bushes near the cabin. He had already been up for hours, she could tell, had already fed the chickens and milked the goat she had not even known he kept and chopped wood for the fire. Good morning, he said when she appeared in the doorway. I hope you slept well. I did, Willow said, surprised to realize it was true. Better than I have in a long time. The mountain air will do that, Lucas said. He ladled oatmeal into a bowl and added a generous dollop of cream and a handful of berries. Here, eat up. We have a busy day ahead. Busy? Willow asked. I thought I would show you around, Lucas said. Teach you where things are, how things work. If you are going to be staying here for a while, you should know your way around. And so began a new routine. Every morning, Lucas made her breakfast, always something soft and easy to eat. Oatmeal with fruit, scrambled eggs cooked until they were almost creamy, soft bread with butter and jam. He never made her feel ashamed of her limitations, never commented on how she ate or the sounds she made. He just set the food in front of her and talked about his plans for the day, easy and comfortable. After breakfast, he would take her outside and show her something new. The spring where he got his water, cold and clear and fed by snowmelt from the peaks above. The smokehouse where he cured meat, the careful process of salting and smoking that kept food through the long winters. The root cellar dug into the hillside, cool and dark and perfect for storing vegetables. The trails that led through the forest, some going to good hunting grounds, others to meadows where the wildflowers grew thick and bright. Lucas was a patient teacher, explaining everything clearly and never making her feel stupid for not knowing. He showed her how to gather eggs from the chickens without startling them, how to milk the goat, how to tend the vegetable garden. He taught her to identify edible plants and warned her away from poisonous ones. He pointed out animal tracks and taught her to read the signs of the forest, to know when a bear had passed through or when elk were nearby. And every day, 3 times a day, he cooked for her. He seemed to have an endless repertoire of soft foods, each one prepared with care. Soups and stews, mashed potatoes, soft polenta with cheese, beans cooked until they fell apart. He made custards and puddings, stewed fruits, and soft cakes that melted on the tongue. He ground corn into fine meal and made a sort of porridge that he flavored with honey and cinnamon. He caught fish from the stream and cooked them until the flesh flaked apart at the touch of a fork. Willow began to realize that he was not just cooking for sustenance. He was cooking with care, with thoughtfulness, each meal a small act of kindness meant to show her that she was valued, that she mattered. He never said this out loud, but she could feel it in the way he tasted the food before serving it to her, making sure it was soft enough, seasoned well enough. She could see it in the way he watched her eat, satisfaction in his eyes when she finished a bowl. "You do not have to go to all this trouble," she told him one evening as he stood at the stove, stirring a pot of chicken and dumplings. "It is no trouble," Lucas said. "I like cooking. And I like knowing that you are eating well." "But why?" Willow asked. "Why do you care so much?" Lucas turned from the stove and looked at her, his expression serious. "Because you deserve to be cared for, Willow, because you have been through hell and someone should be kind to you. And because I want to." The simple honesty of his words took her breath away. She had spent so long believing that she was a burden, that her condition made her unworthy of love or kindness, that hearing someone say otherwise felt almost like a physical blow. "I do not understand you," she whispered. "You do not have to understand," Lucas said gently. "Just accept it. Let someone take care of you for a while." As the days turned into weeks, Willow began to heal. Not physically, her teeth were not going to grow back, but emotionally. The constant care and kindness Lucas showed her, the peace of the mountains, the simple routine of their days, all of it worked on her like a balm on a wound. She began to smile more, to laugh at Lucas's dry observations about the chickens, or the way the goat liked to chew on his shirts when he hung them to dry. She began to relax, to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, to believe that maybe she could be happy again. Lucas never pushed her, never demanded anything from her. He seemed content to simply have her there, to share his space and his meals and his quiet mountain life. But Willow could not help but notice the way his eyes followed her sometimes, the way he smiled when she came into a room, the way his hand would linger when he helped her over a rough patch of trail. She found herself thinking about him more and more. About the way his muscles flexed when he chopped wood, his shirt clinging to his broad shoulders and strong back. About the gentleness in his rough hands when he handed her a plate of food or helped her onto her horse. About the sound of his laugh, deep and rich and rare. About the way he made her feel safe and seen and valued in a way she had never experienced before. One evening, about a month after she had arrived, they were sitting on the porch watching the sun set over the valley. Lucas had made a venison stew for dinner, the meat so tender it fell apart, and Willow was feeling full and content, wrapped in a blanket against the cooling air. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," Lucas replied. "Why do you live alone? You could have any woman you wanted." "Why are you out here by yourself?" Lucas was quiet for a long time, staring out at the mountains. "After the war, I could not stand to be around people," he said finally. "Too much noise, too many memories. I needed space to think, to breathe, so I came here, built this cabin, learned to be alone." "And now?" Willow asked. He turned to look at her, his dark eyes serious. "Now I am not so sure I want to be alone anymore." Willow's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I mean that having you here has made me realize how lonely I have been," Lucas said. "I mean that I like cooking for you. I like showing you the mountains. I like hearing you laugh. I like having someone to talk to at the end of the day." "Lucas," Willow started, but he held up a hand. "I am not asking you for anything," he said quickly. "I know you have been through a lot. I know you are still figuring things out. I just wanted you to know that you are not a burden. You are not an imposition. Having you here is the best thing that has happened to me in years." Willow felt tears prick her eyes. "I like being here," she said softly. "I like being with you. You make me feel like I matter, like I am more than just my ruined mouth." "You are so much more," Lucas said fiercely. "You are smart and brave and kind. You work hard and you do not complain. You have a beautiful laugh and a sharp mind. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life." "Any man?" Willow asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lucas met her eyes, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Yes," he said. "Any man, including me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Willow's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" she asked. "I am saying that I care about you, Willow," Lucas said. "I am saying that somewhere along the way, cooking your meals and showing you the mountains, I started to fall in love with you. And if you feel even a fraction of the same, I would like to see where this goes." Willow stared at him, overwhelmed. A month ago, she had been certain that no man would ever want her again, that she was destined to live alone and unwanted. And now this incredible man, this strong, kind, thoughtful man, was telling her that he loved her. "I do not know what to say," she whispered. "You do not have to say anything right now," Lucas said. "Just think about it. And know that, whatever you decide, you are welcome to stay here as long as you want. That does not change." But Willow did not need to think about it. She had been falling in love with Lucas Zane since the moment he crouched down in the dust outside the trading post and offered her water. She had just been too afraid to admit it, too convinced that she was unworthy of love. "I do not need to think about it," she said. "I already know." Lucas went very still. "You do. I love you too," Willow said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I think I started loving you when you bought me that first bowl of oatmeal. You looked at me and you did not see a broken woman. You saw someone worth helping. And every day since then, you have shown me that I matter. How could I not love you?" Lucas let out a breath that sounded almost like a sob. He reached for her hand, his fingers wrapping around hers, large and warm and steady. "Willow," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I promise you, I will spend every day showing you how much you matter. I will cook for you and care for you and love you for as long as you will let me." "That might be a very long time," Willow said, smiling through her tears. "Good," Lucas said. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "Because I cannot imagine my life without you in it anymore." They sat together on the porch as the stars came out, hands clasped, the future stretching before them bright with possibility. Willow had come to the mountains broken and ashamed, certain that her life was over. But she had found something here that she had never expected. A man who saw past her scars to the woman beneath. A man who loved her not despite her flaws, but because of the strength it took to survive them. As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened. Lucas had been true to his word. He asked nothing of her except to be herself. He continued to cook for her with the same care and attention, experimenting with new recipes, always looking for ways to make food that was both soft and delicious. He made her applesauce from the wild apples that grew near the creek, cooked down with cinnamon until it was smooth and sweet. He made squash soup, silky and rich with cream. He caught trout and made a chowder so tender she could eat it without any trouble. But more than the meals, it was the small intimacies that made Willow fall deeper in love with him. The way he would brush her hair in the evenings, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he worked through the tangles. The way he would cover her with an extra blanket when the nights grew cold. The way he would take her hand when they walked through the forest, helping her over fallen logs and rocky patches. The way he would smile at her across the table, his eyes warm with affection. And slowly, carefully, they began to explore the physical side of their relationship. Lucas was patient and respectful, never pushing, always waiting for her to take the lead. Their first kiss happened on a cool October evening, standing on the porch with the aspen trees blazing gold around them. Willow had been nervous about it, worried about her mouth, but Lucas cupped her face in his hands and kissed her so gently, so reverently, that all her fears melted away. "Beautiful," he murmured against her lips. "You are so beautiful, even without teeth." Willow asked, the old insecurity rising up. "Especially without teeth," Lucas said firmly. "Because those missing teeth are proof that you survived. They are proof of your strength, and I love every part of you." By the time the first snow fell in late November, they had become inseparable. Lucas taught Willow how to shoot, how to trap, how to survive in the wilderness. She was a quick learner, and he was proud of the way she took to mountain life. She learned to make bread and preserve food, to patch clothes and mend fences. She made curtains for the windows and rugs for the floors, turning the cabin into a real home. On a cold December night, with snow falling softly outside and a fire crackling in the hearth, Lucas got down on one knee in front of Willow. "I know we have not known each other long," he said, "but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Willow Zimmerman, will you marry me? Will you stay here in the mountains with me and build a life together?" Willow did not hesitate. "Yes," she said, pulling him to his feet and into her arms. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in Moab on a bright January day in 1879, with Mrs. Patterson and the Trading Post owner as witnesses. Willow wore a new dress that Lucas had bought for her, a deep green wool that brought out the color of her eyes. She had put on weight since coming to the mountains, her face no longer gaunt, her body healthy and strong. Lucas wore his best shirt and had trimmed his beard, and when the justice of the peace pronounced them husband and wife, he kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The first year of their marriage was the happiest time of Willow's life. Lucas continued to cook for her with the same care and attention he always had, and she cooked for him too, learning his favorite dishes and making their cabin a place of warmth and love. They worked side by side through the spring and summer, tending the garden and the animals, hunting and trapping and gathering supplies for the winter ahead. And at night, they lay together in their bed, Lucas's strong arms wrapped around her, and talked about their dreams for the future. They wanted children, they both agreed. They wanted to expand the cabin, add on another room or two. They wanted to grow old together in the mountains, watching the seasons change, living a simple life filled with love and purpose. In the fall of 1879, Willow realized she was pregnant. She told Lucas on a crisp September morning, and the joy on his face was something she would never forget. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, and then set her down gently and placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Willow asked, though she could already see the answer in his eyes. "I am more than happy," Lucas said. "I am blessed." Lucas became even more attentive during her pregnancy. He insisted she rest more, took over all the heavy chores, and somehow became even more creative with his cooking. He made her bone broth to keep her strong, soft-cooked vegetables to ensure she got enough nutrients, and rich custards to help her keep weight on. He rubbed her feet when they swelled and held her hair back when morning sickness struck. He built a cradle from smooth pine and sanded it until it was silky to the touch. Their son was born on a warm May evening in 1880, with only Lucas there to help bring him into the world. It was a long labor, but Lucas never left her side, holding her hand and encouraging her, telling her how strong she was, how proud he was of her. And when their son finally arrived, red-faced and squalling, Lucas cried as he placed the baby in Willow's arms. "He is perfect," Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like his mother." They named him Benjamin after the trapper who had saved Lucas all those years ago. Little Ben was a healthy baby with dark hair like his father and green eyes like his mother. And from the moment he was born, he had both his parents wrapped around his tiny finger. Lucas was a wonderful father, patient and gentle and endlessly attentive. He would walk the floor with Ben when he cried, singing old songs in his deep voice until the baby settled. He made toys from carved wood, smooth animals and rattles that Ben loved. And when Ben started eating solid food, Lucas was there with soft mashed vegetables and tender bits of meat. The same care he had always shown Willow now extended to their son. Watching Lucas with their child made Willow fall in love with him all over again. This strong, masculine man who could bring down an elk and split logs all day was infinitely gentle with their baby, cradling him carefully, speaking to him softly, making sure he was always safe and loved. Life in the mountains was not always easy. Winters could be harsh, and there were times when they were snowed in for weeks, isolated from the rest of the world. But they had each other, and that was enough. Lucas would chop wood and keep the fire burning, and Willow would cook and clean and care for Ben, and in the evenings, they would sit together by the fire, Ben asleep between them, and feel grateful for the life they had built. When Ben was 2, Willow became pregnant again. This time it was a daughter, born on a snowy December night in 1882. They named her Caroline, and she was as different from her brother as could be. Where Ben was sturdy and serious, Caroline was delicate and laughing, always smiling, always finding joy in the smallest things. Lucas doted on his daughter, this tiny girl who looked so much like her mother. He made her a doll from cloth and stuffing, carved her wooden blocks to play with, and spoiled her with affection. And when she was old enough to eat real food, he was there with soft meals prepared with the same love and care he had been showing Willow for years. As the years passed, their family grew and their love deepened. Ben grew into a strong, capable boy who idolized his father and learned everything Lucas could teach him about the mountains and survival. Caroline grew into a bright, curious girl who loved helping her mother in the kitchen and garden. And Willow and Lucas grew older together, their bond strengthening with each passing season. In 1885, when Willow was 30 and Lucas was 33, they added a third child to their family, another boy they named Thomas. And in 1888, their family was completed with the birth of twin girls, Emma and Sarah, who brought chaos and laughter into their mountain home. Through it all, Lucas never stopped cooking for Willow with that same extra care. Even as the children grew and meals became more hectic, he always made sure there was something soft for her, always made sure she had what she needed. It had become such a natural part of their life that the children did not even question it. That was just what Papa did. He took care of Mama. And Willow, who had once believed that her life was over, that she was unworthy of love because of her missing teeth, had found more happiness than she ever dreamed possible. She had a husband who loved her deeply and completely, children who brought joy to every day, and a home in the mountains that felt like paradise. On their 20th wedding anniversary in 1899, Lucas and Willow sat on the porch of their expanded cabin, watching the sun set over the valley. Their children were inside, the older ones helping the younger ones get ready for bed, and for a moment it was just the two of them like it had been in the beginning. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucas asked, his hand clasped in hers. "Staying here in the mountains? Marrying a hermit trapper instead of finding a life in town?" Willow looked at him, at this man who had saved her life in every way that mattered, and smiled. "Not for a single second," she said. "You gave me everything I ever wanted. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You showed me that I was worthy of kindness and care. You gave me a family and a home. How could I ever regret that?" "I am the lucky one," Lucas said, raising her hand to his lips and kissing it gently, just as he had done all those years ago on this same porch. "You saved me too, you know. I was just existing up here, going through the motions. You gave me a reason to live again. You gave me love and laughter and purpose. You made this cabin a home." "We made it a home," Willow corrected. "Together." Lucas pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. They had built a life together from nothing, two broken people who had found wholeness in each other. And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Willow knew that she would not change a single thing about the path that had brought her to this moment. Inside the cabin, she could hear their children laughing, could smell the remains of the dinner Lucas had cooked that evening, a tender pot roast with mashed potatoes, made with the same care he had been showing her for 20 years. This was her life now, full and rich and overflowing with love. And it had all started because a mountain man with kind eyes and gentle hands had seen a broken woman on the street and decided to help. As they sat together in the gathering darkness, Willow thought about that first bowl of oatmeal, about the way Lucas had prepared it without judgment or pity, just simple kindness. She thought about all the meals that had followed, each one a small declaration of love, each one proof that she was valued and cherished. Food had become their love language, the way Lucas showed her every single day that she mattered to him. "Thank you," she whispered into the quiet night. "For what?" Lucas asked. "For seeing me," Willow said. "For loving me. For cooking me soft meals with extra care every day for 20 years. Lucas chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest where her head rested. "It has been my greatest pleasure," he said. "And I plan to keep doing it for at least 20 more years, maybe 40 if we are lucky." "That sounds perfect," Willow said, and it was perfect, this life they had built together in the mountains. Not easy, not without challenges, but perfect in all the ways that mattered. They had love, they had family, they had each other. And every day, through the simple act of preparing meals with care, Lucas reminded Willow that she was precious, that she was whole, that she was loved exactly as she was. The years continued to roll by, each season bringing its own joys and challenges. Ben grew into a man much like his father, strong and capable and kind-hearted. At 20, he married a girl from Moab named Sarah and built his own cabin just a few miles from his parents, determined to raise his family in the mountains he loved. Caroline married at 19, choosing a teacher from town who appreciated her sharp mind and gentle spirit. They moved to Moab, where her husband taught at the small school, and Caroline opened a bakery that became famous throughout the territory for her soft, delicious breads and cakes. Thomas, always the adventurous one, left for a few years to work on the railroad but eventually returned to the mountains, unable to stay away from the place that had shaped him. He took up work as a guide, leading hunting parties and explorers through the wilderness, and built a life that balanced his need for adventure with his love of home. The twins, Emma and Sarah, were inseparable and showed no signs of wanting to leave. They helped their parents with the cabin and the animals, took over much of the cooking and cleaning as Willow and Lucas grew older, and talked about someday opening a boarding house in Moab where they could work together. Through all of this, Lucas and Willow remained the center of their family, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They grew older gracefully, their hair turning gray, their faces lined with wrinkles, their bodies not as strong as they once were. But their love never wavered, never faded. If anything, it grew deeper with each passing year, seasoned by time and trial and triumph. Lucas still cooked for Willow every day, though his hands were not as steady as they once were, and it took him longer to prepare meals. And Willow still looked at him with the same love and gratitude she had felt that first day in Moab, when a stranger had offered her water and kindness and changed her life forever. In the summer of 1910, when Willow was 55 and Lucas was 63, they celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren gathered at the cabin, now expanded multiple times over the years to accommodate their growing family. There was food and laughter and music, Ben playing the fiddle he had taught himself, Caroline's husband leading everyone in songs, the grandchildren running wild through the forest. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Lucas and Willow walked through the forest to a spot they had always loved, a clearing on a hillside where they could see the stars stretching from horizon to horizon. They moved slowly now, Lucas leaning on a cane, Willow holding his arm, but they made it to their spot and sat on the old log bench Lucas had built there decades ago. 40 years, Willow said wonderingly. How is that possible? It feels like yesterday that we met. It feels like forever, Lucas said. I cannot remember a time when you were not part of my life. Do you know what I was thinking about today? Willow asked. That first meal you made for me, the oatmeal with honey. I was so hungry and so hopeless, and you gave me that food and I felt like maybe I could survive after all. I knew from the moment I saw you that you were special, Lucas said. I did not know I would fall in love with you. I did not know you would become my whole world. But I knew I had to help you. You did more than help me, Willow said. You saved me. You gave me a reason to live. You showed me that I could be loved, even broken as I was. You were never broken, Lucas said firmly, the same words he had been telling her for 40 years. You were wounded but not broken, and you healed and became stronger than ever. Willow leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of him, unchanged despite the decades. I love you, Lucas Zane. I love you more than words can express. And I love you, Willow Zane, Lucas said. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Marrying you was the smartest decision I ever made. They sat together under the stars, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that was richer and fuller than either of them had ever imagined possible. And when they finally made their way back to the cabin, Lucas helped Willow to their bed, covered her with quilts, and held her close, just as he had done every night for 40 years. In the morning, he would wake early and make her breakfast, something soft and delicious, made with the same love and care he had always shown. And they would sit together at their table, surrounded by the life they had built, and be grateful for another day together. The years eventually caught up with them, as they do with everyone. Lucas's strength faded, his body worn out from decades of hard work in the mountains. Willow's health declined as well, her body finally giving in to the hardships she had endured in her youth. But they faced it together, as they had faced everything else. Lucas lived to be 78, passing peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1925. Willow, heartbroken but determined to honor his memory, lived another 5 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She spent those years telling stories about their life together, about the mountain man who had saved her with kindness and soft meals, about the love that had sustained them through 4 decades of marriage. When Willow died in the spring of 1930 at the age of 75, she was buried next to Lucas in a small cemetery on the hillside near their cabin, with a view of the mountains they both loved. Their children placed a simple stone marker there, carved with both their names and a single line, "Together forever, bound by love." And their story, the tale of the bride with no teeth who had been saved by a mountain man who cooked her soft meals with extra care, became a legend in Moab. Families told it to their children, young people spoke of it with wonder, and the cabin in the mountains became a place that people visited to remember that love could conquer anything, that kindness could change lives, and that the smallest acts of care could ripple out into generations of happiness. The legacy of Lucas and Willow Zane lived on through their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, through the love they had shown each other and the example they had set. They had proved that real love was not about perfection or appearances. It was about seeing someone's worth when they could not see it themselves, about showing up every day with small acts of kindness, about choosing each other again and again, through good times and bad. And in the end, that was the greatest gift Lucas had given Willow, not just the meals prepared with care, not just the shelter and safety, but the unwavering belief that she was worthy of love exactly as she was. That gift had transformed her life, had healed wounds deeper than any physical injury, and had allowed her to flourish in ways she never dreamed possible. Their story was a testament to the power of love and kindness, proof that even in the harsh wilderness of the Old West, even in the face of hardship and loss, 2 people could find each other and build something beautiful that would last long after they were gone. And every time someone heard their story, every time someone remembered the mountain man and his bride, it served as a reminder that we all have the power to change lives through simple acts of care and compassion. The cabin still stands in the La Salle Mountains, maintained now by the descendants of Lucas and Willow Zane, a monument to their love and to the life they built together. Visitors come from all over to see it, to stand where they stood, to imagine what it must have been like to live there in those early days. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind is just right, people swear they can smell cooking, can hear the sound of laughter, can feel the presence of 2 souls who loved each other so completely that even death could not separate them. That is the story of Lucas and Willow Zane, the mountain man and the bride with no teeth. 2 people who found love in the most unexpected place and proved that sometimes the greatest love stories are built not on passion or drama, but on soft meals prepared with extra care, on daily kindnesses, on choosing to see the beauty in someone when the world only sees their scars. Their love story became the stuff of legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that true love is not about perfection but about acceptance, not about grand gestures but about showing up every single day with an open heart and willing hands. And somewhere in the mountains of Utah, where the aspens still turn gold in the fall, and the snow still falls soft and deep in winter, the spirit of their love lives on, eternal and unchanging, a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt broken or unworthy, a promise that love can find us even in our darkest moments and transform us into something more beautiful than we ever imagined possible.